Hi there, welcome to the second of today's 10-minute moans, where the topic of my 10-minute moan is Stephen Flynn, right? Stephen Flynn done an interview earlier today, live from Aberdeen on Good Morning Britain, right? And he done some absolutely, probably class 1 SNP knob talk, right? Where you've got a knob just talking, right? And what he done was, I've split his interview into two parts, right? Because in the first part, what he does is he deals with, see the stuff that Swinney came out with. I'm going to have half the seats at Westminster, and then that will be a mandate for a second referendum, right? So he's asked that question, and he then is asked basically, so if you don't get half the seats, then that's Indy off the table. And he does some absolute chronic things, everything other than answer the question, right? It's just day one SNP ministerial speak lesson, right? Where they'll not answer the question, because anybody that's normal would say, right, if you're going to toss a coin and it lands heads, you win, and if it lands tails, you lose, right? So what you're saying is, we get that, if we get 29 seats or more, that happens. If we get 29 seats or less, the other thing happens. No, they can't just say, yeah, right? If we don't get 29 seats, because they know they're fucked, right? So they're probably not going to get 29 seats. So they don't want to already preempt the fact that Indy's bust if you take their rules, right? And in the second clip, he actually says that this election won't make any difference to the Scottish Constitution. Totally flipping what he said in the first part of it, and also totally going against like what his party leader said and the manifesto for the party he's standing for. What he's saying is that this election will not mean bird to whatever happens to the Constitution of Scotland. So let's watch the first bit and tell me how you feel, okay?
Interesting, though, that you referred there to what's happening in Scotland, the polls and the seats and how things turn out. Because your leader in Scotland, John Swinney, said, when he launched the party's manifesto last month, if the SNP wins a majority of seats in Scotland, it should trigger a second referendum on independence. The latest polls all have Labour ahead of the SNP. An expectation that Labour will win more seats than the SNP in Scotland. On that same logic, the case then for an independence referendum goes, doesn't it? Because Scotland's chosen Labour, not the SNP.
Well, of course, it doesn't end the argument for Scottish independence. Now, firstly, we've got 2 days to go, and I would urge voters to vote for who they believe will put Scotland's interests first, and I believe that is the SNP. We're very much in the mix right across the entirety of Scotland, and we're confident that we can indeed win on Thursday and defy the expectations of some of the political commentariat. But the premise of your question has probably been answered by Sir Keir Starmer when he has effectively told the people of Scotland, irrespective of how they vote, he's going to ignore what happens on election day. So if the people of Scotland vote for a party who believes in Scottish independence, the UK Prime Minister is saying no to that. That's simply not good enough.
The premise of my question wasn't what Keir Starmer said. It was what John Swinney said. He said, if the SNP wins a majority of seats in Scotland, it should trigger a second referendum on independence. So obviously, if the SNP doesn't win a majority of seats in Scotland, it doesn't trigger a referendum on independence. I mean, that's right, isn't it? Or else it's totally illogical.
Ed, as I'm sure you... So Ed, as I'm sure you would expect me to argue right now, we firmly believe that we can and will win the election on Thursday. So I don't actually think there's a credibility to your question.
No.
We can maybe have that discussion on Friday once the election has been concluded, because we believe
Mr. Flynn, it wasn't me who speculated.
What we are standing for is very clear to the people of Scotland.
Mr. Flynn, it wasn't me who speculated about what would happen. It was John Swinney. He said, if you win a majority of seats, this is what would happen. So, you know, I'm not asking you to respond to me. I'm asking you to respond to your own leader in Scotland. He's right, isn't he? If you win a majority of seats, it makes the case. If you don't win a majority of seats, the case goes. I mean, are you saying John Swinney is wrong?
No, of course not. Well, what I'm arguing is the fact that we will win this election on Thursday and be able to take forward the mandate that the people of Scotland give us. And that's the most important thing here, what the people of Scotland believe should and shouldn't happen. Now, I'm deeply concerned about the fact that UK Westminster-based politicians don't seem to want to respect that, and that's simply not good enough. But that's an argument for why we need SNP representation there, because we'll always stand up to the Westminster status quo, the Westminster consensus, and put Scotland's interests first. And
so there we go. What do you think of that? He's wanting both sides of the coin again. He's not prepared to say what will happen until after the vote if they don't get 29 seats. And what he's told this guy is, see, when the vote's counted, you come back and talk to me. Do you know what I'd be doing on Friday morning if I was that geezer? Oh, Stevie, sit down, answer the question now. You told me to come back. When the voting was done, it's done. You get 20 seats, right? So is that Indy knocking the head? Right, that's what you'll get. Because they're cranks. Then it'll be, we have the democratic right. You have no right. Unless you get 29 seats or more, sit down, right? See these seats are there, sit down and just talk shite when the Labour guy speaks. That's your job for the next 5 years, right? Because that's all you're good at. So, let's see what happens when he tells you what he thinks the impact of this Westminster election will have on the Scottish Constitution.
I'm afraid that this notion that a general election will ultimately define the outcome of Scotland's constitutional future is for the birds as well, because around 50% of the people of Scotland want Scotland to be an independent nation. They want the people of Scotland to be able to determine their own future, and no UK Parliament or UK Prime Minister can curtail the will of the Scottish people in that context, Ed.
Yeah, I think
they're crackers, aren't they? They are absolutely mental. Couldn't give you a straight answer about anything, right? And then, I don't know why he said that. It was probably his head talking without engaging it, right? Where he's just, you know what, it's not going to make any difference. What it actually means is, it'll not make any difference to the Scottish Constitution if we lose, right? We're not allowed to stop us talking about independence. But what he basically said was, this general election will have no bearing on the Scottish Constitution, regardless. Which kind of makes it difficult for him, because he is the leader in Westminster. I hope he doesn't even get his seat, right? I hope he gets hunted right out of the place. But if he doesn't, he's the leader of the party in Westminster. He's then got to argue the case for independence. If they get 29, which they won't. That would be funny trying to untie that one, because I would just show him this interview and say, is that you? Oh, stupid. Is that you? Right? And that's how these people deserve to get spoken to. And I tell you something, we were having a laugh about it, me and a few pals last night on a Twitter space, right? And I'm like, see if we get any Holyrood, right, for a pure laugh. Let's get voted in. We were talking hypothetically. What would you do? I was like, I just talk to them the way they deserve spoken to. See that, what is it you call it? Point of order button they've got under the desk. I'd be like every time at First Minister's questions. Somebody would ask him a question, whoever the First Minister is. Oh, it's Swinney in it. Talk shite, and I'd go that. Point of order, and the presiding officer like, Mr. Houston, you've called a point of order? Yes, presiding officer, yes. See the gentleman over there? He asked him a cracking question. I'd like to hear the answer, but he's waffled for 5 minutes. Could you get me to ask the question again, or I'll press this big red button? I'd be like the guy in X Factor, right, every time they talk shite, because that's what they deserve. Up and down the country, not just Holyrood and Westminster. Talk shite, you deserve to get spoken to like this. All you, shut up, stop talking nonsense, and please answer that man's question. In fact, you know what would be a great gig? Presiding officer or the speaker. Imagine just giving that to me for a day. Like, no, not having it. Excuse me, First Minister. That man over there asked you a question. You started talking about flowers in spring, right? He asked you something about winter. Could you just... And a yes or no suffice, right? And I've seen one great journalist in the last while, and that's Peter Smith, right? ITV. Takes no shite. See if they want to know answer the question, he just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going until they absolutely sound stupid ignoring the question. Very, very few journalists do that today. Journalists and politicians, stop accepting shite of shite politicians, right? So if you're sick of this mob, vote them out. Best way to do it is tactical voting. fed up hearing why folk are going to vote reform and think it's going to change the world in Scotland. I've got news for you, it ain't. Aye, but we need to get their percentage up. Listen, see without Farage, they'll get 5%. See with Farage, they'll get 8 to 10% up here. Makes no difference, right? So I'm sick listening to excuses. If you really want rid of the SNP, tactically vote them. Or if you wake up on the 5th of July to an SNP MP and you have not tactically voted, please do not come and moan to me you don't like the SNP, because I ain't listening. Enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe. But most importantly of all, unless you're that crank, Flynn, any of the SNP, or their ever-reducing cult members. Everybody else, have a great day. Cheery bye now.